right now, talking about traffic. We shall be asking him where that traffic is, so we can also get to give you that update. But I do know where it is. So if you are in Nairobi, the worst route to avoid this morning is Gatanga Road, especially at the junction of Amboseli Gardens. But quite a chaotic place there. There are 4 junctions. Actually 2 junctions that you have to deal with, 3 to be precise, if you're also heading to Kawangware this morning as well. There's just a place there as well, Procha Cooperative Bank, where matatus have just decided they're gonna park in the middle of the road, and once you're done with that, you gotta come all the way as you're making your way to town. Once you get to Amboseli Gardens, that little T section right there, again, there's gonna be a lot of traffic. Now, once you then get on to Gatanga Road as well, there's the next one after Amboseli Gardens. Again, you're gonna find a lot of traffic, so that's why probably some of you are stuck on the roads this morning. But guess what? It is a good Monday. It's a bright day right here for us to look at some of what has been. Now, this is the conversation that Amwai is going to get into this morning once he walks into the studio. Is going to look at some of the promises that we've seen from the CSs who've already been vetted. Now, the entire process did end Saturday, and by the way, whether your definition of a hustler changes or it still remains the same, what we did see as a Kenyans is that cabinet list, my God, by your definition of a hustler, then you will know exactly what it is. We're talking about a cabinet that is worth 16 billion. That's a lot of money. And by the way, when you're looking at it, that's a bit conservative, because then people are saying that if I ask you how much money you have in your pocket right now, if you have 1,000 shillings, you're going to say that I have 200 or 500. So if you go by the absolute figures then from those particular CSs in question, the hustler cabinet, then you're going to say that indeed the definition then of a hustler changes, and we did hear one of them really define who a hustler is. Number one, they said a hustler is somebody who wakes up very early in the morning. What time did you wake up today in the morning? In fact, one Chalagui did say, and is one of those few who's been retained from the previous government, isn't it? Saying that a hustler is somebody who wakes up very early in the morning and tries as hard as they can. And nowadays they say it's not as hard as you can, it is as smart as you can to get a living on the table. Now, do you agree with that? I mean, talk to us. In fact, our hashtags are quite open this morning. The hashtag is the morning drift. I am at Kiage Simba. And by the way, Brian is walking to the studio as well. He is at Amwai Brian as well on Twitter. Let's talk about that as well. And some of the things that I'm seeing Kenyans talking about is how they're going to work today when it's Diwali as well. Now, you do know, we don't know whether we wish you a happy Diwali, because we do know the government was quite clear that indeed today is not a public holiday. We've seen a lot of Kenyans really go online to try and sort of come up with fake documentation purporting to be from the Interior Ministry, talking about how today was supposed to be Diwali and how today was supposed to be an official holiday. It is not, so you can't use that as a reason as to why you're not at work today. By the way, this also coming from the back end of a majority of Kenyans saying there have been a lot of holidays if you go by that. But sisi tuko kazini, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. Those who are celebrating, regardless of where you are, happy Diwali. But hopefully you are at work, because your government did not declare today to be a national holiday as well. Other things we're going to look at this morning, and I do say this, is how Manchester United this weekend failed to win again, and Tottenham as well failed to win again, but our Arsenal is again at the top. It's at the top of the table. Those are the things that matter. Yeah, I mean, by going by the standards nowadays, if you're talking about Arsenal, you say Arsenal still at the top of the table. If you're talking about Liverpool, you say Liverpool failed to win. If you're talking about Man United, you say Man United again failed to win. Again, with Cristiano Ronaldo not involved again in this weekend when they were playing Chelsea. I mean, that's part of the reason as why they lost. But for us, it's just to say that Arsenal is still at the top of the league. But that is exactly what is making center stage of some of the issues that we're going to talk about this morning. Some of them, by the way, are covered on your dailies today. And that's exactly where we're just about to go next. By the way, on Facebook, we are at Lookuptv. The same thing. Also on YouTube at Lookuptv. Come and talk to us on Twitter at Lookuptv as well. The hashtag is the morning drift. Today being a Monday, we're going to settle or sample some of those comments and suggestions that you're actually having on that particular trend, and then get to talk to you about them as the day goes by. Now, here's the thing, just before we take a breather, so we can get to tell you exactly what is the biggest headlines that you're waking up to this morning, in as much as your dailies are concerned. By the way, as you wake up this morning, you have to know that Kenya right now is going through a crisis. The shortage of rains, even as we're talking about how today is a bright Monday, is a majority of Kenyans, and I'm talking about 4.3 wildlife in the country is dying, and I'll be telling you exactly how that is on the sidelines of how right now as we talk Kenya is in a crisis. There are also questions of where that food relief program that our President Ruto launched the other day is, because they're saying, well, that particular exercise is yet to touch majority of Kenyans. So those are the questions that we're asking ourselves. Even as new CSs are coming in, the question has to be, every year at this particular time, we keep on saying Kenya is not feeding itself. Do we have solutions that we can count on as those that we're going to call long term? Because majority of Kenyans across the world, across the country, are losing their lives. If we go to the northern part of Kenya, we've been covering these stories here on Lookuptv. I mean, every single day we don't have a drought watch. It is biting. It is already driving majority of Kenyans in those particular areas to their wall. What is going to be the solution? Some of those conversations that we're going to get into this week as we go on with issues to do with the running of the country as well. Remember, it is just a couple of days into Ruto's administration, and he did say that there's some of those areas that he wanted to solve. Looks as if this drought situation is already wiping off some of those promises that he put on the table. That is how we start this morning. Now, we take a short breather. Once we come back, we shall be looking at what is included in the dailies today. What are some of those headlines that you are waking up to this morning? I will be telling you exactly what we have on the Daily Nation and the Standard once we come back. Good morning. This is the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. Let's move away from how Man United has failed to win a match again, and now Arsenal is at the top of the league. That on the side. Now, let's look at what is on the dailies today. And I'll be starting with the Daily Nation this morning, and I will tell you three issues that are really going to capture your attention this morning, in as much as the country is concerned. Number one, Turkana in throes of hunger. That is the headline, and I'll be telling you how they're giving that kicker. This is what they're saying. It is a humanitarian crisis, and this is a story that the Daily Nation actually got to do, and you can go into details into that story on pages 10 of that particular daily. And they're saying, we arrive at Mr. Namonio Echoto's homestead at 11 a.m. in the morning. We find him sitting on his traditional stool, Ekicholong, pensively watching his family as they eat acacia seed pods from a bowl. And then they quote that by saying, "It is all we have." Michai Choto says, lifting his tearful gaze from his children whose sunken eyes tell their own story. That's the situation in the country. And this story is going to take center stage for the entire of this year as well, because we do know the country right now is in a crisis. In fact, a humanitarian crisis. So hopefully there will be a solution that is found here. President Ruto has been saying we need to find a long-term solution. So it's up to us then to start asking the questions of what long-term solutions are those that the government then is pushing into the country for us to move away from these particular headlines year in, year out as well. We shall be, if you want to read into more of that story, go all the way to page 10 and see exactly how majority of Kenyans right now are suffering at the pause of the drought situation in the country. Now, let's focus into politics in the country again. And still on the Daily Nation front page, they're talking about how Kalonzo refused a job offer. That is according to Ruto now. In fact, they're saying President William Ruto yesterday said he made deliberate efforts to engage Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, including offering him a job in his government, which, and I like this choice of words, which he flatly declined. Talk about being happy in opposition. You want to read into details of that story, go all the way to pages 5. And what do you think, really? Should have Kalonzo accepted a job offer in Ruto's government? You can also get to share some of those sentiments to us right here in the studio at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms, and more specifically at Kiage Simba. All right, let's talk about also another headline that you're waking up to this morning. Raila has ordered a probe into election laws. That is also on the front page of the Daily Nation. So three areas that they decided to focus on this morning. And this is the kicker. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has ordered an audit of the last election, which he lost narrowly to President William Ruto, to assess his vulnerabilities and understand the reasons behind his loss. Now, this even as he faces an internal rebellion that will test his grip on his political constituency. Right into that story on pages 7. So pretty much similar stories by the Daily Nation on how the man within Raila's camp, Kalonzo, refused a job offer from Ruto, and how now Raila Odinga then wants a probe or an audit then into the election that he just lost. Now, this is a story also that is covered on page 3 of the Daily Nation, if you want to read into details on that. Now, they're talking about how there are inside plans now to pull regional troops out of war-torn Somalia. Now, this is it. The timelines are 26 months, the deadline that Kenya should be pulling its forces out of Somalia. And you want to know into that story as well, read into pages 3 of the Daily Nation. Let's look at what I have at the last page. That is the Daily Nation as well. This is what they're saying. The committee faces Thursday deadline for vetting report. So we're going to know that Thursday then we'll know who has been given a green light by that committee to move on then to be appointed as a cabinet secretary, and who failed the waters of that committee that was vetting the CS nominees as well. So, right into that story. See a football story here. They're talking about how Arsenal paid for Western clear chances in rare slip-up in their English Premier League match against Southampton. No, the referee decided they're not going to give us a foul or any penalty. Fine. On that note, let's look at what the Standard is focusing on this morning. Talking about how Arsenal, you go watch that game. Should have got like 4 penalties in that game. Anyway, that on the side. What the Standard, they're talking about how police are seeking clues now on missing Indians in container of death. By the way, if you've not known details of this story, I urge you then to read it. Seen sections on social media saying that this is the horror of some of the security breaches that happen in this country. They've decided then again to cover that story on pages 3, 4, and 5. And this is the kicker in it. A blood-stained container said to have been a holding cell and torture chamber of the disbanded police squad is undergoing forensic analysis to establish who was held there. More reasons then as to why President Ruto decided to disband that particular squad within the Department of Criminal Investigations. That is on pages 3, 4, 5 of the Standard. And also how now 20 counties, the number that have been affected by the drought. Also, you got to read that story on pages 8 and 9. The kicker is here that counties are shelving the development plans to deal with drought that threatens existence of communities. Now, that line right there is heavy when you read at it, and the hope for cheap food is complicated by poor rains and high inputs. That is in terms of the prices. Also, read into how Kalonzo has refused that job offer. That story again has appeared here on the Standard. And how NEC now is issuing tough rules ahead of examinations. Read that story on pages 10. And why tilapia are dying in Lake Victoria. By the way, just to show you that, if you go to pages 21 on that story, and this is what they're going to say, the high temperatures that are getting experienced in the country right now are behind that particular problem. And they're saying that this problem started a week ago, that when we started noticing the fish floating and then dying, the number increased in a few days, and are now all the cages are quite empty. Read into that story as well so that you can know exactly what is behind that. Let's go into pages 3 so we can see exactly what they have also spoken about. That's the same story of the container of death. That story is still being unraveled and talking, getting majority of Kenyans talking about it this morning in Kenya. And last stage on that particular, I'm going to talk about sports this morning. So this is the headline, Who when the Saints topped Gunners from marching on. I don't like this headline. Still marching on. Where are the Saints in comparison to Arsenal? That song like, oh, when the Saints are marching on. Yeah, we understand the creativity. But here's the thing. Arsenal still is leading. Lost just a match this season. 28 points, should we remind you. And still top of the league. Have been there for almost 6 weeks in the running now. Yeah? Probably the next headline around that is better. Is this the beginning of the end of Ronaldo? Yes, Man United killed his career. Some clubs just don't know how to deal with big players. Guys, let me leave it there. Listen, now you do know exactly what it is that you're going to run into this morning as you wake up. That's just a snapshot of what is in your dailies this morning. We take a tiny breather right here again. Come spend the next 10 minutes so we can talk about what it is that you guys are talking about online. In as far as your trends are concerned, remember the hashtag you can use to reach us this morning. It is at the morning drift. I am at Kiage Simba. Let's get talking. Tiny breather. Once we come back, your trends this morning. We have a very interesting tweet about how Rigathi Gachagua, but I hate him or like him. I wish Amwai was there so we can get to talk about it. Hate him or like him, he talks, and every time he talks, he then gets us news. It's a particular tweet here that I would like you to look at, and it's a quoted tweet about how Rigathi Gachagua is a bit confused. Here it is. And this is from Moses Ngige. And this is, I'm going to read the entirety of this tweet, and this is what he's saying. I'm also seeing Homa Bay trending. I'll show you what it is. Now, this is it. Ukambani, you've no business being in opposition. Kalonzo was with us on Mashujaa Day, and we thought we are together. Then yesterday, we saw him in Homa Bay. We don't understand him. That's according to DP Rigathi Gachagua, commonly now known as Rigathi G. Fine. Let's get talking about that. And the headline this morning, let's just marry the two so that we could make proper sense of where that tweet would then get Kenyans talking. This is it. The president also said yesterday, by the way, yesterday there was another thanks. Just before we make sense of that, Thanksgiving service. We thought we already had that. Let me just speak to the president's supporters. How many Thanksgiving services do we need to see? Wait, it's a legit question. After you won the elections, we saw you go to church instead of, yes, thank you very much. Let him know. All the supporters of the president. After you won the elections, we saw you go to church, Thanksgiving. Then yesterday again, there was another Thanksgiving, and that's where it came out, where the president said Kalonzo refused a job offer from Ruto. In fact, the choice of words there is quite good. Blatantly, no, actually, flatly declined. So that's Kalonzo saying, "We bwana mistaki, staki mambo yako." That's the that's how you paraphrase it. Good. And then now, Rigathi G is again confused now. Again comes in and says, when we were celebrating the Mashujaa Day, we saw Kalonzo with us. Then all of a sudden, we saw him in Homa Bay. Then he's telling the people of Ukambani, guys, listen, you have no business being in opposition. What does that mean? I mean, the rest of us are also in opposition. You were saying that. Does that mean that you're not supposed to be in opposition? I don't know exactly what that means. But anyway, it's up to you now to actually get to see whether it was okay for Kalonzo Musyoka to receive that job offer from the president, or it was not. I mean, Rigathi G is also saying, Ukambani people, you have completely no business being in opposition. Wait, what are the perks of being in opposition, and what are the perks of being in the party, or in the government, or in the party that has the government, or running the government? And the president is quite clear that whether you supported him or not, you're still a Kenyan, and he was not going to look at you differently. Yeah, talk about him confusing. All right, let me see what majority of Kenyans are saying. Now they're saying Ruto was in Homa Bay, and all of you got busy. That is according to Kennedy. Now, there's, let me just go through a couple of them. Now, this is Joseph Magu, who's saying, tell Rigathi G that Kalonzo is a very honest man who prophesies Jesus, just that he doesn't emphasize it as regards. Well, okay, that's how it is. Now, this is Robert who's saying, I think we saw him in Homa Bay, means the DP took note of whatever Kalonzo was doing or saying in Homa Bay, and he wasn't amused. It is not about him being in Homa Bay, it's more than him being in Homa Bay. That is according to Robert Gitau at Wagavirwa. Robert. All right, this is also Felix who's saying, this guy is showing us what we fail to understand, that these guys still hate us. Too bad. This is according to Felix Mudhiu, just responding to what Rigathi G said yesterday then about what was going on. And this is, let me also sample some of your comments around this particular area as well. This is Njuguna who's saying, lakini sikusema ukweli Kalonzo haeleweki. mara hapa, mara pale. But how though? Robert Njuguna, sorry, he's already said he didn't even pick a job offer from the president. That's as clear as you can. In fact, they said he flatly declined. That's the president. That's him telling you, I'm a clear man. If you want to understand me, then talk to the president. I actually refused his job offer. So you can't say that anymore now, probably, according to Musyoka, isn't it? Now this is a funny one. Kwani umebeli nyumba yako? Situletee bwana. Kenya ni ya kila mtu. Na tutaenda kule tunataka. Anyway. All right, let's move away from that. Let's just do a recap then of what Kenyans are also talking about online, and I do know what those tweets are. It's about football. Just 2 minutes just before we take that break now. This is what I gotta be very clear about. All those Man United fans saying that Arsenal is already showing levels where they used to be. They're now drawing against mediocre teams. Listen, Southampton is not a mediocre team. They've always been troubling us. Go back to last season. Go back to the season before last season. We've not been performing well at St. Mary's Stadium. But then look at your position before you talk. Isaiah. Guess what? Tell them I don't care. Anybody who's, I hear that they're waiting for me outside the studio. But if there's any headline that we'll pick from this weekend, is that Man United, who need to win to get into the top 4, failed to win again. Failed to beat Chelsea. Hi. Anyway, let's take a breather right here on the Morning Drift. Once we come back, I'll be taking you directly to the newsroom so we can see some of the headlines that you are waking up to this morning, in as much as our newsroom is concerned. Once we come back.
Born a man, the society bestows tough responsibilities upon you.
Lazima uwe mtu wa bidii, ukija kuoa lazima uwe ni provider.
If you're not able to provide, that's a challenge. It takes a toll on a man.
It takes someone who is strong enough to face it.
This is Born a Man.
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349K. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the Cedar Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optivent's plot of land, you get 10K cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
Hapa kazi tu inaendelea kuwasaka na kuwatambua wale ambao wanafanya kazi extraordinary na zile kazi za kujituma.
Biashara yote unaambiangwa, as long as you have a plan, you can do it. Our service is about to pressure the customer.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni hapa kazi tu.
watching the morning drift. In case you're just joining us, my name is Simba Kiage. This is your #1 morning show. Let's now cross over to the newsroom so that we could tell you what it is that you're waking up to in as much as our newsroom is concerned. Now, President William Ruto has on Sunday attended a Thanksgiving service at AIC Township in Kitui County. Ruto was accompanied by his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, and the allied leaders slammed the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka for remaining adamant to join the government. Lennox Sengre reports.
Ruto's Kenya Kwanza Thanksgiving prayers on Sunday pitched tent in Kitui County, which is Wiper leaders Kalonzo Musyoka's backyard. Kitui is the third county the head of state is visiting for prayers after Meru and Homa Bay, but the trip is billed at an attempt to reach out to the region that voted overwhelmingly for his main rival Raila Odinga.
Tulikuja hapa tukaomba kura zenu, na ninyi watu wa Kitui nasimama mbele yenu leo kusema asante sana.
Ruto, who was flanked by both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio affiliated leaders, took a swipe at Kalonzo for being elusive in joining Ruto's wing.
Niliwaambia Mungu akinijalia niunde serikali, nitatafuta ndugu yangu Steven nimshirikishe katika kuendesha hiyo serikali. Si namna hiyo? Na mimi nataka nimjue. Mimi mwenyewe nimemtafuta huyo Steven, nimeketi chini na yeye, nikamwambia ndio hii serikali tuende pamoja. Akaniambia kwanza anataka kujaribu ya upinzani. So wacha jaribu kidogo, alafu tutaona mbele. So si namna hiyo? Wacha jaribu ya upinzani kwanza tuone vile mahali itafika, alafu tunaweza kuongea tena baadaye. So there is no problem. Hata hii ya upinzani ni kazi pia. So there is no problem. Si tulisema kazi ni kazi. So tungangane tu namna hiyo.
At the church service, Kitui Governor Julius Malombe and his Machakos counterpart Wavinya Ndeti called upon the president to work with Kalonzo.
We have a cut line from the lowest ward, which is in our county, which is called Kansiku, up to where we border with Meru in a ward we call Sikru. And I prepared myself to really finance, together with the national government, the cutting of that cut line so that we can have a clear border.
Tumesema wakati huu Machakos, Kitui hata Makueni, hapa ni kazi tu. As we want to work, we want to make sure that we deliver for our people. We will work with you, we will walk the journey. All I can ask you, ndugu yako, jua vile mtaongea na yeye.
DP Rigathi Gachagua attributed that Kalonzo attended the Mashujaa Day event at the Uhuru Gardens Jamboree before making about turn.
Uchaguzi umeisha. Situfanye kazi pamoja. Tufanye kazi na huyu gavana, sio? Na hao waheshimiwa. Makao Mungu umesema vizuri. You provide a position. Keep us in check and we are happy. Tumefika mahali tuko because huyo mzee Azimia aliwacha kazi yake ya mizani akaingia kwa serikali. Tukakwama. You oversight us and we are ready. Every day.
Kalonzo was quoted during his Saturday tour in Homa Bay, alleging that the opposition will form a shadow cabinet on Raila's return from India to keep Ruto's administration in check. But where does the truth lie? Lennox Sengre for Lookuptv.
Lennox Sengre with that story. Now, the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is a man in the limelight from his statement that the Azimio la Umoja coalition will announce the shadow cabinet secretaries that have been laid out by the Azimio leader Raila Odinga if elected as president. Speaking after a church service on Sunday, Kalonzo, who was accompanied by the coalition's allied leaders, poked holes into the just concluded general election.
Because there are several expected by elections. Several. If some of these nominee cabinet secretaries will succeed in the endeavor, then clearly there will be by-elections. Ask yourself why Chebukati would have wanted to carry out, instead of waiting for these by-elections to come together, why did he push for December 8th? Just to make sure that he perhaps has some duty to perform, maybe to a friend, before he leaves office. That's my own conclusion. It will not be the responsibility of William Ruto alone to choose who will be the next chair of the IEBC. And yesterday I compared this IEBC thing to what there is in football. You know, there's a device called VAR. Ukiscore out of tune inakwambia hapana, kama ile hand of God ya Maradona. They didn't have it by that time. But these IBC guys have been doing that kind of a thing, yeah, and getting away with it and causing so much pain. I don't know why a whole team would want to incur a national curse, because what it is. Some of us speak, by the way, in another kind of spiritual authority, and I see people incurring serious curses upon themselves by their own conduct. There are men and women of this country who know what happened, and others from outside of the country. The Kenyans have now to ask themselves, is it really necessary to go to the polls?
4 detectives from the disbanded Special Service Unit, SSU, were arrested in connection to the abduction of 2 Indian nationals and their Kenyan driver, are expected to be arraigned in court and are facing 3 different charges, even as investigations continue. Ian Keitani files the following story.
The 4 Special Service Unit detectives who were in custody at the Kilimani and Kileleshwa police stations were arrested after investigations were conducted and were placed at the scene of the abduction in Nairobi. The officers are expected to be arraigned in court in connection with the disappearance of the 2 Indian nationals, Zulfikar Khan and Mohammed Zaid, together with their driver Nicodemus Mwania, who are reported to have been abducted on July 23rd. The detectives are facing 3 charges, including conspiracy to commit a felony, abuse of office and kidnapping. This comes after President William Ruto ordered the disbandment of the unit, which is believed to be behind forced disappearances and extrajudicial killings in the country.
Mambo ya usalama ikaharibika. Polisi wakabadilika wakawa ni watu wa kuwaua wa Kenya badala ya kuwalinda. Tumevunja ile ilikuwa inaitwa special sijui nini ya police ambayo ilikuwa inaua wa Kenya kiholela.
After investigations were conducted on the orders of the president, a vehicle which is believed to belong to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation is said to have been used in the abduction of the 3 individuals who were last spotted in Westlands, with the vehicle later on seen along the Thika Superhighway. The 2 Indian nationals were part of President William Ruto's IT team in the run-up to the general election, with their disappearance now placing diplomatic relations between the 2 countries in jeopardy. Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
President William Ruto gazetted vacancies for the positions of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC chairperson, and 2 members from January 17th next year. In a notice, the president notified that the current office holders' tenure will lapse in the next 3 months, having been in office for a 5-year term since 2017. This morning, we'll look at what next for the IEBC chair.
He walked into the IEBC offices in January 2017. 6 years later, after overseeing 2 general elections, Wafula Chebukati walks out as the chair of a commission that has been marred by divisions among commissioners. January 17th is the last day the embattled chair will be in office. And as his tenure comes to a close, the president sets the stage for the search for another chair and the 2 exiting commissioners. The notice reads, and I quote, "The tenure of the chairperson and 2 members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is set to lapse on January 17th, 2023, having been appointed on the 18th January 2017, with the Gazette notices 399 and 400 of 2017. The first schedule of the IEBC Act then requires the president to appoint a selection panel in charge of recruiting new commissioners at least 6 months before the lapse of the term of the chairperson or members of the commission.
We should have a panel to to appoint the next commissioners. Now that panel should consist of two persons from two men and two women from the Public Service Commission. Then we need to have one person nominated by the LSK and one person by the Council of Churches. That means now that yesterday the Gazette notice was issued, the LSK needs within 7 days to nominate a person and forward the name to the Public Service Commission. Then the Council for the Church Council also need to appoint two persons and forward the names to the Public Service Commission. And then the Public Service Commission is supposed to now nominate the two men and two women and forward the names to the presidents. Then the president is supposed to nominate to appoint the 7-member committee within 14 days.
According to the IEBC Act, the office of the chairperson or member of the commission shall become vacant if the holder dies, resigns from office by notice in writing addressed to the president, or is removed from office. The commissioners to be recruited will join Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera and Commissioners Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi and Justice Nyang'aya, who are facing ouster bids sponsored by President William Ruto supporters over their decision to disown the August 9th presidential election.
The commissioners' tenure of office is secured by law. So Parliament alone, with the current law as it is spelled out, they can't chase them out of office when they use that word. But probably what they can do is amend the law. You see, Parliament is they have the power to amend the law. So if they're able to amend the IEBC Act and probably provide for now a way out, or probably convince the commissioners to resign, that would be the only avenue. Otherwise, the law has already secured the tenure of the commission.
The fate of the 4 commissioners now lies with the National Assembly, and as Chebukati tenure comes to an end, what will he be remembered for?
Looking back at how he has conducted his work, historically since 2007 we've not had a commission chairman who has handled 2 successive elections. So that's one thing that really stands out about Chebukati, that he was firm enough to be able to handle the elections in 2017 and the elections in 2022. You might notice that at some time the politicians, sometime after the 2017 elections, some politicians tried to drive him out of office. So for me, he comes out as a chairman who has been firm, who has stood his ground basically, because that is a very politically heated kind of job or kind of seat, unlike many other seats or unlike many other commission chairmen that we see out there.
He is a chair that led a divided commission that saw the exit of Roslina Kombe, Margaret Mwachanya, Paul Kurgat and Koni Maina, who resigned, and later their replacements holding divergent opinions. Cherera, Nyang'aya, Wanderi and Masit disagreed with their boss, setting motion for a court battle on the legality of the 2022 presidential elections that was termed as opaque.
Other commissioners, the 4 remaining commissioners that we have, the vice chair and the 4 others, their tenure of office expires in 2027. That means 1 month after the election, that will be in September 2027. Now that means the new commissioners that come in will need to have, we have seen a very divided commission during the last presidential elections. And so we expect that we need to have a lot of harmony between now the existing members, like the 4 members and the 7 and the 3 that are coming on board. So I believe the first thing that they should do is just have a workshop or have a boarding kind of exercise that at least we don't expect to see what happened.
From the kind of tone that the president adopted when calling him a hero, you know, all that, I expect that he will land somewhere else. My view is Chebukati is somebody we are going to see in the public limelight for some time. Of course, unless he himself decides that I'm no longer interested in being in the public limelight. Perhaps the way Chief Justice Emeritus Maraga decided that I want to go home and take care of my grandchildren. But from the tone that the president adopted, I expect that he might land somewhere, perhaps some commission chairman somewhere else.
Chebukati also goes down in history as a commissioner that once led a bungled election in 2017. As he exits office, the chair of the poll body leaves a face and commission that will have to work hard to show a united front and have the people believe in its process. Brian Amwai, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Now, they just concluded a cabinet secretary's nominees vetting process has sparked different opinions from Kenyans. Speaking during an exclusive interview with Lookuptv, political analyst Herman Manyora has trashed the appointment committee, stating just misconducted the process. Manyora lamented that the issue of the wealth should have been discussed deeper. Shadrach Arabia looks at that particular story.
After a week-long cabinet secretary's nominees vetting process that was completed on Saturday, the appointment committee is tasked with the responsibility of approving or rejecting some CS nominees, according to their performance during the interview.
Thank you very much.
However, according to a political analyst Herman Manyora, the entire process was a formality, as the MPs may approve all the nominees without considering their performance.
Next, of course, is Parliament itself will have gone through. Of course, after this committee, there's Parliament, plenary, then there's the President to nominate them. Then they are sworn in by the Chief Justice. It's as simple as that, and they become your ministers.
While punching holes in the entire process, Manyora stated that the committee should have gone deeper into key issues, such as investigating the source of wealth of each nominee, and not just cutting across.
The vetting is not vetting. Vetting is supposed to be a serious process. For example, if you say you have all this property, we would want to know how you got the property, not a breakdown of the things you have. There are people with integrity issues. Those integrity issues have not been interrogated by the vetting committee. To that extent, therefore, the vetting is just a formality. Then when you keep telling Kenyans, I have 500 million, 700 million, the vetting committee must know this will be of interest to Kenyans. So you must go beyond. It's not a catalog. You know, I don't think it's supposed to be a catalog of what you own. It's supposed to be something that resonates with what people think. So if a junior politician who doesn't run any known business, who has never had a serious professional job, if he says I have 400 million shillings, Kenyans will want to know exactly how.
Manyora also undermined the effort by Azimio One Kenya coalition of appointing shadow cabinet secretaries to keep the government in check, as earlier stated by Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka.
Hivi majuzi baba kirudi, we are going to announce our shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet, because we want to hold them to account.
But for this one, they can only do it for really. It's not constitution. There's nothing in the constitution. There's no opposition in parliament. There's the majority and the minority side, not opposition. And that office is not there. So they cannot have a shadow cabinet. But they are free to look to oversight government in whichever way. If having ministers shadowing other ministers is their way, so be it. But to me, I find it useless. It doesn't help.
Shadrach Arabia, Lookuptv.
Now, that particular one would mark the conversation that Brian Amwai, who's seated right here in the studio this morning, is going to actually talk about the just completed CS's vetting process, with the main question being those promises, including the net worth. Is it something new? Something to look forward to now. The Kenya Institute of Bankers, KIB, Interbanks Sports Association, officially kicked off yesterday at the Kenya School of Monetary Studies, with KCB making a strong intent to roar louder than its competitors when the tug-of-war team overpowered and energized CBK side during the opening ceremony early yesterday.
The Kenya Institute of Bankers Interbank Sports Competition kicked off today, with KCB shining yet again after silencing the fierce side CBK in the tug-of-war game during the opening